And we are live for a new episode of the Electrek podcast. I am Fred Lambert, your host, and as usual, I'm joined by Seth Wintraub. How are you doing this week, Seth?
I'm good.
All right, this episode of the Electrek podcast is sponsored to you by our partnership with IAA, which is the new Future of Mobility trade show conference that's going to happen for the first time in Munich in the first week of September or the second week of December.
It starts like on the 7th. So yeah.
7, okay. And we're going to be there. And we want you to be there too. So we're going to have a little bit more to talk about it later on in the show. So stay tuned for that. But we're gonna start the show with a bunch of Tesla stuff. And we know that like last show was mainly I think it was only Tesla stuff. And also it lasted like an hour and a half. And we're going to try to get through it a little bit faster. But we have non-Tesla stuff on the second half of the show too. And I'm going to try to let you get out of here at a reasonable time because I need to get out too to see the Habs kicks the bottoms of the Golden Knights. All right. First news is going to be the EPA numbers for the new Model S Plaid and long range. So the new versions of the Model S are starting to get their official EPA range. So for the long range version, the updated long range version, there was some confusion about the range of it. Like Elon said, like 412 miles during the event just last week, and even joke about it being almost 420, but it's not almost 420 because it's actually 405 according to the EPA. So Tesla was a little bit off on that, and but we do see an improvement in efficiency still. So a little bump in range because if you remember the 2020 version of the long range, they call it long range plus actually, was 402. So just a 3-mile bump instead of the 10-mile bump that we were expecting. But it also a decent little increase in efficiency here at 120 combined city and highway driving. 120, that's miles per gallon equivalent that they call it, which is not a great way really to look at efficiency, but
very legacy.
Well, it's probably gonna be that until there's no gasoline cars because you want to compare the efficiency with the gasoline cars, but eventually we're gonna just compare efficiency between electric vehicles, which is something that we're gonna have to do more in the future because there is a significant discrepancy between some of them. Like there's definitely more efficient EVs than others. Then the Plaid also got the EPA rating, but it got it only for the 21-inch version, 21-inch wheel version. So with that, like you can see a big decrease in efficiency compared to the long-range version, which comes standard with the 19-inch wheels. So the Plaid with the 21 gets 101 mpg, and the range falls to 348 miles. So now for the Plaid, a 19-inch wheel version, Tesla has been estimating 390. So that would be like a big difference just from the wheels, because that would be the same car. That would be the Plaid with 19-inch versus 21. But that version hasn't received its official EPA rating just yet. But we can still compare it with the 21-inch performance, which the Plaid is replacing, and decent bump in range, a bigger one actually than the long range. 334 to 348, and also that is expressed to a decent bump too in efficiency. But what we noted with that is that the bump in range, at least not for the Plaid but for the long range, is bigger than the bump in is less so than the bump in efficiency. So the efficiency increased more than the range, which normally would indicate that the battery pack, the energy capacity of the battery pack is not as big as it used to be for the equivalent version from last year. Well, we say last year, but whenever they stopped making the Model S, the previous version. And it looks like Tesla actually confirmed that to Motor Trend, which was the first publication that was allowed independent testing of the Model S Plaid. And they apparently confirmed to Tesla, confirmed to them that the new battery pack is 100 kilowatt hour instead of the roughly 104 kilowatt hour that was on the previous Model S. So a little bit less energy capacity, but the power capacity is definitely higher, and the efficiency is also higher, which sometimes they go hand in hand, which is interesting. And of course, we're talking about the battery pack capacity. The battery pack itself can be more efficient. Well, it's automatically more efficient if you have less battery in it because it's not as heavy, and that's good. But there's also some improvement in efficiency throughout the powertrain, including the electric motors. And are we talking about that next? Yeah, we could do it. Actually, I'm gonna jump one. I'm gonna go back in because during the presentation last week, like Elon did talk a little bit about the motors, I think, but didn't go that much into details of it other than the carbon sleeve thing. But he did release some images of it for the first time of the new drive unit. But he elaborated a little bit more on it during a little tweet storm that he did. So we get a little bit more details about it, which is interesting because it's arguably the biggest actual engineering update to the Model S with the new Plaid. So he said that the fiber is one over rotor at high tension load. Machine to do this was made by Tesla Automation. Automation? Is there a dot here I'm missing? Yeah. Carbon sleeve must put copper rotor in compression or it loosen at low temp due to differential thermal expansion. Preload is also helpful for maintaining precise gap to stator. So he's basically elaborating here on what the carbon sleeve achieves, which I've been trying to talk to motor experts and everything, and reach out to a few on LinkedIn, and it seems to be just a lot of confusion on what Tesla is achieving with that. Like they are impressed that they were able to do it in the first place, but they not a lot of people can even comprehend what they're able to achieve with it. So Elon here talks about the actual advantage of it. So the main advantage of this is a much stronger EM field, which is an electromagnetic field, compared with a rotor that is held together by metal, usually high strength steel, which is the usual sleeve of a rotor. Other advantage is that the rotor can go to a higher RPM, as a carbon sleeve mostly stops copper rotor from expanding due to residual acceleration. So that is the actual achievement here. At least it sounds like. Here you can see a little bit closer look at the drivetrain. We're getting a ton of Atlas ads lately with those pickup trucks. Like be careful about that stuff. I'm getting a lot of them for some reason, but I'm a bit skeptical about the company, to say the least. Okay. Oh yeah, and then Elon elaborated about where they can improve from there too. So he said that the Plaid carbon wrap motor is arguably the most advanced motor on Earth, outside of maybe a lab somewhere. And that lab somewhere could be a Tesla lab too, because after that, he says we have to keep some secrets. We have a few ideas for increasing torques and max RPM even further for a new Roadster. Definitely fun and exciting engineering ahead. So it sounds like basically Tesla has already some ideas to improve on the current carbon sleeve design motor, and they plan to introduce that for the Roadster. But the way Elon is talking, of course, is always pretty vague on that front, which maybe he has to with the SEC and all that stuff. Watching his tweets, but it's fun to hear him talk about the Roadster first of all, and also if you read between the lines here, having somewhere in the lab, keeping some secret. Elon said that the Roadster, they're gonna have the final engineering done this summer with the new prototypes, leading to production next year. So if he's talking about integrating a brand new motor in that Roadster, sounds like they probably already have it. What do you think?
Well, in the lab, so to speak. Yeah. So kind of a lot of stuff to unpack from that. The big takeaways for me were man, why do people buy 21-inch rims unless you're racing? There's such a suck on range, and on top of that, they don't feel great when you hit a bump, and they get flats easier, and just a lot of downsides, not a lot of upsides unless you're on the track.
They look cool, Seth.
They look cool.
They look cool.
Yes, they do look cool. They look dope. So yeah, for me, it's wow, that's a huge 50-mile kind of drop from 390 to 340 something.
And we'll see. I mean, the 390 is not official yet, but
right. But in that range, that's crazy. Just for big rims. And I say that as somebody who had a Model X with 22-inch rims, which
Mhm.
sucked. Like,
Mhm.
I bought a used one that had, they did look dope, but it wasn't my first choice. And yes, that like actually we had snow tires that we used in the winter that got better range than the 22s. We had
Well,
20-inch tires.
that's what I'm gonna do next summer for my Model 3 because I have the performance wheel. Is it 20 or 21 for the Model 3? I think it might be 20.
Yeah.
And for the winter, I've used my I use the same wheels and just get 20 or 20-inch tires on those wheels. But now that I've had a few winters with them, like I didn't want to like I felt it the first winter a lot, but the tires were brand new and they are not cheap tires too. So I went through a few winters with them. But now I think the next winter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy new wheels, probably 18-inch, and just put 18-inch winter tires on them, and keep my 21 for the summer, which is not as big of a deal. Still a hit though. Still get a lot less range, but for the winter, I think it's going to make a big difference for me to have those 18-inch wheels.
Yeah, and then so the carbon sleeve. Like the big takeaway there is that like it's on the outside, and when it gets the big thing about this motor is it gets over 20,000 RPMs, which is crazy. It sounds like at that speed and that the heat created, copper doesn't seem to retain its like size. So the idea is that the carbon wrap keeps everything together at those higher speeds. That's my takeaway. I don't understand the intricacies of it, but
No, it sounds like you're about right.
so I'm curious about what other stuff Tesla is doing to bring more torque and more. What is it for the Roadster? More torque and more. Is it speed or I can't remember. But yeah, I'm curious about what other advances they can do. I also like, the most advanced motor in the world. I don't know. There's probably some cool stuff going on somewhere.
Torque and max RPM, so they can
Yeah.
go even higher in RPM.
Yeah, and they were very vague about the max RPM of that. Elon said 20,000 RPM and a whole lot more, but they didn't say like where it red lines or whatever.
Yeah, I mean when you get to 20,000,
right? I mean, some math guy can figure out like the size of the wheels and the gear reduction and the RPMs and get a number, but
I'm sure we're gonna get that what's his name, Sandy Monroe tear down,
right?
Or plenty of other tear down too. I mean, with the kind of, and now we're gonna get to the performance, but with the kind of performance that this car is getting, I'm sure a bunch of other automakers have added their name to the backlog to get one. Well, when I say automakers, like I'm sure they go through other people to buy them. The invoice is not from Ford or whatever, but they're gonna want to tear down that car to take a look at those motors and the kind of performance achieving, and the performance is not only Tesla talking now. Look at that. I'm just fascinated by the ads that we get on our AdSense now. I put an article on the Model S performance, and then the Rimac is advertising on it. It's smart advertising.
That's crazy though. How many people are buying Rimacs from AdSense ads?
I mean, I'm sure they can spend like $200,000 in advertising per car and still make money on that.
Right.
Like the car costs $2 million, and I'm sure it doesn't cost them $1 million to make. But yeah, the Motor Trend was got access to a Plaid before even the unveiling and got some testing done. You can check out the article we linked in this article here. But basically, the first half of the article, they were like bitching about Tesla putting a lot of restriction, stipulation on how they can test the vehicle.
You could tell they were pretty pissed off.
Well, that's what I don't get, because they put all the stipulation on, but then they still had access for the car the next day to do whatever they want with it, and they brought it to their own test track and everything. So I mean, okay, like I think it was more like the funny way to set up the fact that there was two parts to this testing. There was the part that, yes, it's independent testing by us, but with some stipulation from Tesla, and then another day of testing that was just on their own. Because apparently Motor Trend, when they test the acceleration from for the vehicle that they test, they do it on a drag strip with the surface hasn't been prep. They call it VHT prep, which is they spray some things on the asphalt to make it stickier, which is help with the traction when you do a launch. And most track that I've been to, if not hard to recall, but all drag strip I've been to, I feel like have that. They have it to different degree, though. Some of them are more or better prepared than other, and you can see a big difference sometimes. But for the most part, they always like that. So if you bring your car to the drag strip, you most likely will get the VHT prep surface. But anyway, so Tesla forced them basically to test it on VHT first, so that they could achieve that 1.99 seconds 0 to 60 acceleration, which not only they did, but they got 1.98 seconds 0 to 60. That's without removing the 1 foot rollout, of course, which a lot of people are upset about. But that's how Motor Trend does it. So that's how a lot of automakers advertise it too. So be it. They also got a quarter mile at 9.25, coming in at 152 miles per hour, which is just insane. They did explain too, of course, that to achieve that, not only on the VHT prep surface on the drag strip, but also with the drag strip mode activated, with the launch mode activated, which gave you a cheetah stance. But that's not new. Prior Model S also had that. You can only achieve that full power going through that, and a lot of other cars are the same too. The only way to unleash the full power is through that those launch modes basically, and that they do more than just put you in cheetah stance. They also like prep the battery pack and everything, prep the motors. But then they went on the non VHT prep surface to test it. And the good news is that it's not that big of a difference, to be honest. They got a 2.07 seconds, so a 0.09 seconds difference in the 0 to 60, and 9.34, and like barely any difference in the speed for the quarter mile. So basically the same thing. And because here's the thing, the power curve, like we saw that Tesla released the power curve, the unveiling, which was very impressive. And the advantage of that power curve is not just the 0 to 60, but it's the like 30 to 100. Like and even beyond that, like the curve like barely slows down. So yeah, the Model S Plaid is crazy performance. The performance is insane, up to like 130 miles per hour. Like it doesn't slow down the acceleration. Like it keeps picking up. So the prep surface only makes a bigger difference for the 0 to 30, let's say, and then after that it's just a rail gun basically.
Yeah, and I imagine for cars that don't spin tires so much, it doesn't even matter to have the prep surface. But we're only talking about like the super hypercars here.
Yeah. And then Tesla is supposed to have new tires and new wheels coming out too for that car. So probably in a sort of track, like they do with the Model 3, like what they call it, track package, I guess.
Yeah.
So with that, you should have even better traction. But yeah, all those stats I just told you, whether it's on the prep surface or not, it breaks all the record for production cars. So
right.
let's make that clear. Like this is the new standard. Now you could argue a few things, including like again, crazy good advertising from Rimac, because I do mention it in the article. Like technically the Rimac would be that, but then it's entering production now, so you could consider a production car, but it's a limited production car. I think 150 units that they're making.
Yeah, and it's 2.4 million each. Crazy.
2.4 million each. So that I don't know if the money really affects like the production status itself, but I mean it's a limited production car, and it does get like better performance, significantly better too. I mean, at that point, like it doesn't sound like that much better. 1.85 doesn't sound that much better than 1.98, but when you get to those number, like half a second is not a half a second, but like 1/10 of a second is a giant difference. And yeah, it's so it really depends on how you look at it. Then you have the Lucid Air 2 that could potentially challenge that. but that's not in production yet, and it's not going to be until till
Lucid
the end of the
really needs to get those things into production before we can
yeah.
start talking seriously about them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty positive on Lucid. I think they're gonna get to production at that point. They got a lot of backing now, and they are far along in their factory, getting the factory up and ready in down in Arizona. But yeah, I mean, bringing your first car to production as a company is no small feat. So they are they might be some delay. Like I wouldn't be shocked if there's some kind of delay with the air.
One last thing about the Motor Trend thing. What I found interesting was that they noted that every single run they did was within, like 100th of a point difference. And, obviously it's impressive that Teslas are doing, race after race after race. That's something new that, Porsche and everybody else was kind of making fun of Tesla from before. But it's also interesting that because it's an electric car, there's not, a difference of like air intake and all these other variables that happen with combustion engines, that they're very, they keep the same exact rate every single time, very consistent. So for me, that was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't really.
Yeah, it's gonna be good for the people that want to race those cars, not just on the drag strip, but on actual laps around some racetracks. Like the consistency of that's gonna be important to be able to maintain that power output for consistently throughout different laps.
Oh yeah, one of our commenters, Asimo 3089, notes that, did you notice that Motor Trend has a more extreme cheetah mode? Near the back of their 120 image list is a photo of the car squatting down with the wheels buried in the fender. I'm gonna have to take a look at that one. I didn't.
So I suppose what you mean is that the new Model S Plaid has a more extreme than the previous version of it.
More aggressive, perhaps. We'll have to take a look
further there. Yeah, I mean, there was some mention of suspension tuning with the new Plaid. I don't know if the brand new suspension. I mean, Tesla has been improving on the Model S suspension a lot in the last few years, so wouldn't be surprised if there's still some incremental changes. And maybe yes, they can have a bigger differential from the back to the front. That would give it even more of a hass-up look of the Cheetah. All right, where we were at. All right, the yoke. Like there was a lot of talk too about the yoke steering wheel. Not that more people have had a chance to try it, and the videos are out there and everything. And yeah, I mean, Elon confirmed there's no drive-by wire on this. It's usual electric to mechanical steering shaft. And it has the usual 14:1 ratio, so like 900 degrees that you can turn this. So yes, as you can imagine, well at speed it doesn't change anything. Like at speed, it's great for like on a highway driving and everything. Like it's gonna be great because you have the better visibility and everything, and you don't need to turn the wheel too much. But at low speed, it looks pretty dumb. Like you see the image here that what he's doing, because the guy is parking there. I can show you this on the video right there. It was towards the end, I think. Yeah, right here. This is from OC Detailing in Fremont. So any type of parking situation or slow moving where you need to get like a 90-degree turn and everything, it starts to get a bit. Am I too soon? Yeah, too soon here. A little bit like that. You can see, and he ends up like pushing the force touch button too, because
yeah, that's not good.
This looks dumb as hell, and it's not the first time we've seen that. Other people have tried this butterfly steering wheel system, and you get the same problem at low speed. And it's not that bad for a parking situation there, because it's still low risk. But what I'm more concerned about is like you need to do that too in the best example is if you hit a slippery surface and you lose control of the car, and you have to do some sharp maneuvers like that on the steering wheel, and there's no traction, so there's no speed. So you don't get the same feeling that you do at high speed. So it's limiting to some degree for sure. I'm honestly, I'm kind of shocked that Tesla went with that wheel without having a progressive steering system, which could have been, of course, unlocked by drive-by-wire. But what Elon said actually this week is that he confirmed that they are working on drive-by-wire, like we previously reported, but he said that it's still a few years away. So, and that brought another concern too, because we did note that not only the Model S Plaid has the new wheel, but the prototype on the Cybertruck has a new wheel, the prototype on the Roadster has a new wheel. So
Right.
those cars might go the same way, because Elon said that they're sticking with it. Like he said he likes it, they're sticking with it. There's no talk of an option too, which is kind of crazy, because we know Tesla has the option. Like they did build the round steering wheel with the force touch button without any stock and everything. They have that, but there's no mention of releasing that at all. And you know that if they release it now, it's gonna piss off some people too that are already like taking delivery of their car and everything, and wasn't an option for them. So I don't know it's gonna be in the cards. And for the Cybertruck, I think that's a bigger concern too, because if you're towing something and you're like in a parking situation with something in tow, like this is gonna be this is not gonna be fun. I mean, to be fair, I think it's something you can get used to, but it's just suboptimal. Like a round steering wheel for those situations is 100 times better. There's no doubt about it. So yeah, I'm pretty shocked that Tesla released that without any kind of progressive steering curve. You can see really that it's a situation where Tesla is just looking ahead at full self-driving, and they're like, yeah, I mean, the car's going to park itself, so what are you worried about?
Right.
And to be fair, like the parking system in the Tesla is not bad. It's pretty good, but I'm still I don't use it that much. I don't know about you, but I've
No.
used it like once or twice, but like most of the time, like I'll park it myself. I don't need a. But I
Yeah. Same
mean,
here.
they're kind of forcing you then. Like
Right. They're making it
if I
much harder to park
yeah,
manually.
I mean, if I have a Plaid and I got a parallel park it, like now I'm gonna be more looking forward to using the auto park feature than doing it myself with that kind of steering curves.
Yeah, and I still wonder. I know we mentioned it last time or time before. Is like, could you put an adapter on there? Like, it wouldn't be a perfect circle, but like at least you would have the top part to kind of go. Like, I'm sure some Tesla aftermarket company could build or 3D print a thing that clipped onto the thing and made a full wheel or a square, I guess in this case. I
Yeah,
mean, like even if not for the driver, like if you lend the car to your mom or something, like she's not going to want a yoke. I'm assuming. So
yeah.
just
I mean, I've already heard of aftermarket companies working on whole steering wheel. Though they're not talking about what you're talking about, just a head on top of it,
mhm.
which I think would be hard to make look good. But I don't know. Like I'm no designer either.
Yeah,
All right, moving on. Elon is still pondering the idea of making a Tesla home HVAC system.
do it.
Yeah, yeah, do it. And Uh, actually, the interesting part of that news is like he's still pondering it, is because more recently in other comments, it made it sound like it was still in the work. Because when Joe Rogan asked him about it, it's like I won't comment on future Tesla products. Or you're confirming that it's a future Tesla product, or like it wasn't that clear, but pretty close to it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people are like, what? Well, why would Tesla get into home HVAC system? But when you think about it and you think of Tesla's whole lineup, it actually makes a ton of sense. Like it's a home energy product. It's not an energy generator, but it's a big energy consumer. So Tesla is big on making clean energy at home, but the cleanest energy is the one that you don't consume. So if you build a HVAC system that's more efficient than the rest of the industry, you just save a ton of energy. And if Tesla is already getting into your home to install solar panels, to
Right.
install a charger, to install a power wall, then like yeah, it makes sense to also install an HVAC system. And at the same time, another part of the comment that was interesting, Elon said that in like a little tweet storm that he had with himself, and it actually started with someone praising the HVAC system inside the Tesla vehicle. And Elon said that maybe we should advertise, that's his word here, maybe we should advertise informationally, just so people know stuff like this exists. So this is kind of interesting. Like he also claimed that it's literally 10 times better than any other car. So I don't know, if you are like if you are advertising, you need to be careful with claims like that, because it's the FTC that regulates that, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, the FTC will look that up for sure if you're claiming to be 10 times better than any other product. But yeah, it's an interesting thing that Elon is even considering Tesla advertising, which hey, another good advertising spot here with a Dyson purifier, like home purifier.
Wow.
Like, yes, I had sense it's getting good.
They're really good.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if Tesla starts getting into advertising, that would be quite something. But personally, I think like it was like a off the cuff comment. I don't think Tesla is actually working on that right now, because especially if the federal tax credit reforms happen this year like it's supposed to, and it does include a new $10,000 incentive for Tesla. I mean,
yeah, all hands on building.
Yeah, there's gonna be no need to advertise anything at all. Like, and I mean, sales in Europe are doing good too. And China is a bit up and down, but I'm sure at long term it's gonna be good. So I don't think that. Well, actually, advertising in China is probably where it would make the most sense, because it's the most competitive market, and also hair quality is a bigger concern there than anywhere else. So maybe that's what he was thinking about when he said that.
Did he ever mention anything about purifying water with that HVAC system?
Yeah, he said that.
I mean, that's something obviously
for the home system. The advertising stuff was about the car, the air purifying system inside the car.
Right. So if Tesla makes an HVAC system with like a water, like I feel like it was Ben Sullins or somebody did a thing where they put a thing on the roof and it just spat out water like from the air. And I know California is kind of in need of some water right now, so that would be an interesting product to have out there.
Yeah, they're having a good drought right now again, right?
Yep, big one.
Hey boy. Are they having a heat wave like we are too? Like, I think so. I think in San Francisco, especially, right?
Yeah.
All right. Next, some interesting comment that came from the transport minister in Germany. He said that he was in direct talks with Tesla about opening the Supercharger network to other automakers. So this is something that Tesla has talked about for years, like they are open to do it. And more recently, even Elon had a comment about vague comments saying that low key, it's already being used low key by other automakers, which in another podcast we tried to figure out what that means. We couldn't really come out to a clear answer, but still, it's interesting. And Tesla has always been clear that they're open to opening it to other automakers, as long as they figure out a way that doesn't overload the network, and that the cost is being spread out based on the use of those different automakers, which is not exactly easy to do, even though the Tesla has all the data and everything. Like the network, like sometimes it's low use, sometimes it's overused. Like it's hard to make that work well for everyone. Like I mean, I assume that most Tesla owners have end up at some point. Like most of the time, you drive around and stop at a supercharger, and you never have to wait. But every now and again, you do, and when you do, most often you do have to wait a while, especially in like holidays and things like that, where there's a high traffic on the road. But yeah, in this case, it sounds like Tesla is getting pressured from the German government to open the supercharger network, which I don't know where that's coming from exactly, because I mean of course in Europe it would be a lot easier for Tesla to open the supercharger network, since they are already using the CCS standard. I mean, just last year, I don't know if you remember when like there was a bug and every other EV was able to charge on a supercharger network and for free, and because of the bug. So it's definitely a possibility, as long as you handle the back end for the plug and charge to be able to recognize the car and send a bill to a credit card that's associated with the car. But once that's done, it's pretty easy to do. But then other automakers would have to pay Tesla for that, or well, I don't even know exactly how it will work, because it's not other automakers that would have to pay Tesla. Probably the owners, the vehicle owners would have to, but then they would have to do a deal with the plug and charge protocol, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They would have to use the plug and charge protocol, because there's no like credit card readers or app for the superchargers. But we know Tesla's been a member of the standards body, the Charin or whatever, for a long time. So and it's not rocket science to get plug and charge working, although it's not really being rolled out too quickly here in the US. But it could certainly be done.
Yeah, it would be hard though, I feel like, because especially if you do it like that, if you don't like do just a deal with an automaker and you just open it up, so then it's free for all. Anyone can go charge if they are willing to pay for it, and it could put a decent new load on the supercharger network.
Right. Yeah, and Tesla's already having some lines. I think we got a tip about the one of the ones between LA and San Francisco where there's just like lines all the way to the highway.
Yeah, and it's hard, especially if you do it like that. It's and then we're talking about Europe here, where the CCS here is. You open that up, and then you don't, like, some region will probably get a lot fewer new cars on it. That they just, for example, if the IoT network is more useful there, or in the Netherlands, for example, over they have the IoT and they have the Fastnet and all that stuff. Like maybe like the other vehicle in Tesla wouldn't see that much use of the supercharger network, but in another region they would jump on it. They like, if they can use it, like it would make sense for them, and that put too much of a load for and affects the ownership experience of Tesla owners. Like it's a fine line to walk. I don't know how it would be. The execution would need to be done very well, which is not always the case with Tesla.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's going to be one automaker at a time. Like the friendlies, like VW or something, would be first, and then somewhere down the line, the less friendly.
Yeah, that's an option too. But even that, like VW is starting to put a lot more cars on the road now.
That's true.
Electric cars, so that the load could be significant too. All right, do you want to talk about the IAA Mobility show a little bit?
Yeah, I don't have anything to read, but like we're kind of excited about this. We've been talking about it a little bit, but Bavaria has opened up conferences starting September 1st. So it looks like the IAA Mobility show is on. IAA is, or in German it's IAA, but it's basically the new Frankfurt Auto Show relocated to Munich, which I don't know if you've ever been to Frankfurt, but it's not a super touristy town. Munich's got a lot more stuff going on. So that's great for the visitors. And they also have a nice bunch of places to show stuff. So the IAA is actually a pretty cool, complement to Electrek or vice versa. They're not just talking about cars there. They're talking about mobility. And obviously we're big into electric bikes and scooters and autonomous stuff, and obviously sustainability as well. So it's just kind of a perfect matchup. So they came to us and said, hey, we'd love you to get the word out. In exchange, we'll give you guys a booth. And we were like, hey, that's awesome. So Fred, myself, and Micah are all going to fly out there. We're going to hang out at our booth. We're going to do some interviews of car companies and bike companies and mobility companies while we're there. And frankly, it's just nice to get out. This will be my first international trip in a year and a half. I don't think you've gone too far, Fred, beyond LA.
Technically I did an international trip. I came back from the US to Canada.
Right.
So this is international travel, but I also haven't moved since.
Yeah, so I think we're all looking really forward to this event, and we hope like a lot of our readers can come out and join us. If you're like a company that wants to get your name out there, sign up to get a booth there. It sounds like it's going to be a great time. And like love to catch up with people. So write us and schedule a time. We'll hang out, or just come to our booth.
Yeah, we're gonna be hanging out there and looking forward to it. And if someone at IA is listening right now, can you check if it's okay? If I can use rollerblades on the show floor, because it's gonna be a big show. Like you can see the Evan's place right now and everything. Like it's a big center. So I'm thinking of bringing. I just got brand new rollerblades, so I'm thinking I could bring those and just I would cover a lot more of the floor with those there. But I know that it's frowned upon in public areas, indoor areas to go around in rollerblades. I just think it would be fun.
Well, it's a mobility show. Maybe we'll pick up some scooters and stuff while we're there.
Yeah, you can see there's going to be a lot of test area too. Like they have two different zones to the whole event, if you will, and they were separated by a corridor that's really like a street in the city, really. And you're going to be able to take test drives of different vehicles from one place to another. So that's an interesting aspect of it.
For sure. I'm really looking forward to this. Like first trip, first exciting partnership. Like it's going to be great.
Yeah. All right. We have a few more news items to discuss, not related to Tesla, in the next few minutes. And then when we're done with that, we're going to get into the questions. I know that we already have a bunch of questions and comments right now. So, but we might be able to take a few more. So if you want to put them in the comment section right now, do it. And also, if you're enjoying the show, please give us a thumbs up right now. That's really help the podcast. Whether you're on Facebook, on YouTube, watching live, that's always super helpful to push it to more people through the algorithm. Also, if you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Do it right now. It's free, and it also helps the show a lot. And you get a quick little notification to know when we are going live again. So that's helpful too. All right. Ford, there was this thing that came out. Was it this morning? Or yes, that was this morning. So a leak of a survey that they're doing with the new F-150 Lightning reservation holders.
Oddly specific survey.
Yes, very specific of all the different trims of the vehicle with some listed MSRP and after tax credit. That's not that important here. MSRP is what we're looking at. And it goes a bit against what we heard from Ford when they unveiled it. That was last month?
Yep.
I guess the biggest thing is how to actually get that extended range at 300 miles, which what they told you exactly last month was it would be $10,000 more, but that was about the fleet. Is that right?
Right.
So even though that was about the fleet, because they were focusing on fleet customer first. Ford always does that with its with his heavy duty vehicles like this. But then it trickles down to the consumer after that. But if it started at $40,000 for both and $10,000 more for the extended range, we assume it would be the same thing or close to the same thing for the consumer, with maybe a few different options. But in the survey that they released here, the only way to get the 300 miles of range is with the LARAT plus premium package. At least that's what they're making it sound like. And that starts at 79,500.
Yeah, but this isn't well done, and there's obviously some spelling errors and stuff. But if you scroll down a little bit and click that first top left thing, one of the options you selected the Pro Series, which is the base model. Below is a list of option packages for the Pro Series. Again, if you were purchasing today, would you buy? So that brings to note that we asked Ford about this, and they were like, well, we might change things. We're going to change things. This doesn't mean anything. But it says that the extended range battery pack at $10,000 is an option for the Pro Series, which is the base model. So theoretically, one option would be $10,000. But then it begs the question, like, why doesn't Ford just say that, like in the beginning, outright?
Well, it sounds like it wasn't meant for people to see, maybe, or something like it, or for the public to digest like that. Because I assume that everyone's clicked that, like everyone that answered the survey was like, yes, I would give me the $10,000 on the Pro Series, which would make it a $50,000 300-mile trucks, which is what everyone wants here, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I think maybe Ford wants people to buy like the fancy high margin $80,000 car or truck. Maybe they don't. This is kind of like the secret menu in Elon parlance. Um, it is available, but they're not advertising it very well. That's my best guess at this point.
It's not impossible. I mean, we were all a little bit surprised that Ford was going to achieve that with the F-150 like that right away. So it's like we were expecting something closer to what GM did, with going a little bit higher hand, like maybe some more of like a Raptor competitor to start with, leading up later. This it's not that surprising, but after what Ford unveiled last month, we were like, oh, look, this is not exactly what you guys said, but well, like you said, this still a work in progress, and it's a survey to get information. So we might we might be overreacting here.
Right.
All right. Speaking of GM with the Hummer EV, they had their own announcement for the electric vehicle programs this week. Basically, a money announcement that they are going to be spending more money on the electric car investment, and especially on 2 new battery cells in battery cell factories in the U.S. Within the next few years. So it's an acceleration of their investment plans, both for electric vehicle and autonomous vehicle through from 2020 to 2025. So of course we're already in 2021, but they updated their current investment plan. So it's as they go. And a few of the interesting thing that was released then, the GM is now targeting an annual global EV sale of more than 1 million by 2025.
That's up, right?
Yeah, that's up, and we're talking about a significant ramp up here, because going from what are they doing right now, like it's has to be, well, I mean, what I'm concerned with GM, especially with the way that they've communicated their electric vehicle cells before, and talked about the vehicles, and especially in China and everything, like we don't know exactly what they're talking about here. If they include the Wuling one that they're selling at $5,000 in China, if they include those like almost like neighborhood type cars,
right,
like it's going to be a lot easier to achieve that million unit number.
Yeah, they might accidentally do that like this year.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they're selling a ton of those per month, but this is a car that they sell in partnership with a Chinese auto manufacturer, and also it is like barely a car.
Right.
But still, they're increasing their investment, and in the US that will take the form of 30 new electric vehicles by 2025, and those 2 new battery cell factory under the Ultium joint venture with LG, and those 2 new factories are going to be in the US on top of the one in Lordstown and the one in Tennessee. I don't remember where it is in Tennessee, but they already have those 2 in construction. The one in Lordstown is already very advanced, but and the one in Tennessee, I think it's production start in 2023, 2024, and then by then they're gonna start building 2 new ones too. So a lot of money going to electric vehicles. I mean, GM has been a lot more bullish on the EVs recently in the last 2 years.
It's funny you mentioned the Wuling. I wonder if like how far from one of those Micah's weird Alibaba car of the weeks that those things are, because he just bought a pickup truck, pickup truck off of there. And I can't remember how much he spent, but it probably wasn't much more than like
I think it was $3,000, but then with all the fees and everything to get it to Florida where he's having it shipped, I think it ends up to $6,000. So basically around the same price as the Wuling. But I think the Wuling has a higher top speed. Like the Micah's thing is very much a neighborhood vehicle, like neighborhood electric vehicle. Like it is classified like that, and it has a different classification for the DMV and everything. It's not that far out, I'm sure, but and that actually probably more useful. I mean, Micah's pickup truck also comes with like the dumping bed in the back and everything. It's pretty well equipped for
and we posted actually a review this week from Fully Charged of the Wuling. They have a writer out in China, and I watched it. It actually seemed like not horrible. Like obviously, if you get in a wreck, you're dead, and it probably doesn't make highway speeds too well, but for the neighborhood, it's probably
Mm.
100 miles or so.
I mean, for the cost, like you cannot
Yeah.
complain too much. Like
Right.
when you're buying a car like that, you cannot expect that much.
Right.
All right, VW this week also launched the ID.4 AWD Pro. Is that actually how they're calling it?
Yeah, they have the Pro, and then there's a Pro something, Pro S something.
Yeah, but I
That's
think
even.
they have the Pro in the AWD Pro, the all-wheel drive Pro. I think that's in the name too,
Oh,
right? I think the the normal Pro is like the non-first edition rear-wheel drive. I
yeah, but
might be mistaken in that
I
about
feel like
that.
they're both all-wheel drive. Both Pros are all-wheel drive. There's a first edition, a Pro, and a Pro something. Anyway,
the first all-wheel drive ID.4 is being launched in the US this week. It's not coming to the US right now. The launch is just they release all the details about it. The new 295 horsepower powertrain, 0 to 60 in 5.7 seconds, and
which is an improvement.
An improvement. It's a little bit peppier. The new range also that between the Pro and the Pro S is going to change between 240 and 249 miles. This is actually the biggest impact is due to the wheels again. You have the bigger wheels in the Pro S, and which
Pro S, that's right.
which gets you the 40 miles of range. Not a big drop from what is it 260 that they get on the regular rear-wheel drive. I think
it's 256 or something.
Okay. So yeah, the vehicle is actually coming to dealership towards the end of the year or the fall or the end of the year. The fourth quarter. So yeah, towards the end of the year. But the big veil here is the pricing. The MSRP for the ID.4 AWD Pro is $43,675. So it is significantly cheaper than the Model Y, because we've been comparing the ID.4 to the Model Y a little bit, but to be fair, I mean the Model Y starts in all-wheel drive, while the ID.4 was a rear-wheel drive at first with the first editions that started deliveries this year. So now the all-wheel drive is a better comparison, and it is significantly cheaper. And also, of course, VW still has access to the $7,500 tax credit, which again might change later this year. But for now, that it is what it is, and that brings the price down a lot. Like we're talking about $36,000 cars now, and that's before state incentives. So you can bring the price down a lot. I mean. But we weren't we're not very concerned about the car anyway. Like to be honest, they used to advertise with us until a little bit this week for this one, and I wasn't sure where they were doing that because I felt like they were gonna sell anyway. But yeah, I mean, where it's gonna get a little bit more competitive, I think, is once they bring the production to the US, and now the volume is gonna get a little bit higher because for now, the US market lives off allocation from German-made ID.4s. So this when they start producing in Chattanooga, the volume is going to be higher, and we're going to see a lot more of those. And also, that's when the market's going to be more competitive too, with a lot more of those small SUVs and crossover on the market. The Pro version, which again gets the 20-inch wheels and a few other design variation, starts at $48,000. Everything comes with $1,195 destination fee, and of course, those are all MSRP, and you need to deal with your local dealership, and the final price is going to be negotiated between them and you. But yeah, I mean, exciting stuff. I think that a lot of people were waiting for that. I know that here in Canada, a lot of people were waiting for the all-wheel drive version, so that's exciting. I haven't seen the pricing here in Canada. I'm gonna look it up soon because I want to see if they do get the. I mean, I don't think they will get the federal incentive because it's stopped at $55,000, and
you don't think it'll be below 55?
No, because 55 Canadian. If it starts at 43 US,
right. I'm thinking of the 36.
I mean, sometimes they'll take a loss on it a little bit just to compensate with the options and everything because of the $5,000 does make a difference, but still.
Yeah, so I actually saw my first ID.4 on the road in the wild today, or not today, yesterday. Just driving by here in Westchester. I don't know if you've seen any, but
not here, no.
Yeah.
You know what I'm starting to see a lot on the roads here? It's Mackeys. Mackeys are starting to be a little more popular,
Yeah, we've seen a couple of those as well. Yeah, it's great to see these things out there.
Yeah.
We drove to Vermont like last weekend, and I tweeted about this. And usually car dealers, they don't put like electric vehicles out front, but the one in Burlington, Vermont had like 5 or 6 Mach-E's, or sorry, ID.4s, 1, 2, 3, 4, like right in front of the splayed out. So I thought that was cool because usually the dealers kind of just hide those EVs in the back.
I mean, they shouldn't, because honestly, like I think it's the best looking Volkswagen right now. Like,
For sure.
And it's also like a little bit more futuristic looking and everything. I think it would bring people in actually.
Yeah, it's a great looking car.
Yeah, if you shoot a whole fleet of that, it get a double take, you can catch your attention more.
Yeah, and I think actually VW is bringing them, the all-wheel drive ones, to the U.S. faster than they had originally anticipated, or the Chattanooga plant is taking longer, because initially they told us the all-wheel drive ones would be coming from Chattanooga. The first all-wheel drive ones would be coming from Chattanooga, and then that switched to the Chattanooga would be coming later. And now that I think about it, the time frame, I think Chattanooga might be late to be starting up, because initially the first all-wheel drive ones were supposed to be coming from Chattanooga later this year, and now it seems like the time frame's the same, but where they're coming from is different.
What's the battery supplier for those? Is it SK or no?
I should know this.
Because that might have something to do with it.
That might be the issue. Yeah.
I mean, battery supply is more often than not the culprit when it comes to limiting the production of electric vehicles. Though, I mean, these days with the chip shortage and everything, it can be pretty much anything else. All right, moving on. A few more news items before we get the question, so stay tuned for that. Polestar 3 electric SUV was announced. They announced that they're going to build it in the U.S.
Big.
I'm shocked. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the announcement that they're going to have $10,000 to $12,000 tax credit on U.S. built electric vehicles. The timing is a little bit strange on that front, but okay. I mean, if you're familiar with the Polestar, is the new all electric brand under Volvo, and for now the cars are coming out of China. So this is a big change for them. They're actually going to build the cars in the U.S. And it's with the Polestar 3. Apparently, is going to be a bigger SUV here. I mean, the Polestar 2, of course, is kind of a sedan crossover here. Like it's a sedan, but it has a big hatchback in the back, and it stands a little bit higher. But I think a sedan is probably the word for it.
Yeah.
And but the Polestar 3, they're talking about 2022 for it, which I mean, if you're gonna build a factory and build it, like
bring it on.
Yeah, it's an aggressive timeline, but we'll see. I mean,
it also might be a final assembly kind of situation, just to get that.
Yeah, good point. There would be in South Carolina. So yeah, maybe I'm not familiar with Volvo's production. Maybe they already have something there, or
that would make it easier.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Polestar is a different company, but still.
They're a different company, but they're not. And like Geely owns Volvo, and they own half. It's just weird.
Yeah. I
mean, it's all Geely, I guess.
All right. Now, not so good news. Lordstown also had little snag this week with the CEO. Both the CEO and the CFO resign. And if you're familiar with the CEO, Steve Burns, it's a big deal, because Steve Burns basically made that company happen. Like he was the guy behind Workhorse, and he's the one who led the deal with GM to buy back the Lordstown factory from them and to build the pickup trucks there and to use some of Workhorse technology to do it. And he basically like created a company out of that deal. And then they did the SPAC deal for billions of dollars, and then the scrutiny started getting closer to them. And we were always skeptical of like, and I don't want to be too hard on them, because I think their intentions are very good and everything. I don't think it's like a Nikola situation where you have some shady people behind it, Trevor. But the in this case, I think they had very good intention. It's just they were a little bit too ambitious with bringing an electric pickup truck with hub motors, which is completely unproven technology in pickup trucks, and like putting your most valuable, most important equipment inside one of the most vulnerable part of the car, which is in case the wheels. It's not impossible, and there's some part of it that makes sense, but it is quite the endeavor to have it, and especially when you start from scratch here. And they did have the big factory, but the factory needed a ton of retooling, a ton of work to produce electric pickup trucks. And they ran into a ton of issues, including their first prototype catching on fire during the first drive, which is never a good sign.
Not a good sign.
And then they clearly overstated their order book, and that. But I mean, to be fair, that's every company does that. Like, they embellish their order number, so it's not that big of a deal. But of course, when you're dealing, you open yourself to that. We want to go public. You want to do a SPAC deal, then you have to be more careful about what you say about those deals, because they do have those orders, but they're non-binding orders, so they don't mean that much.
Right.
And they got ARP on it bad, and that combined with the issue bringing the vehicle to production, it's they're having a big setback right now, and both the CFO and the CEO are getting the boot. It sounds like. I mean, they officially resigned, but it does sound like, I mean, the company made an announcement that they're having some, like, they released a press release that sounded like, "Hey, good news! We're doing some executive management, some restructuring." Is like,
right.
You're not fooling anyone with that one, guys.
Yeah, and you have to say, like, it's impressive. Like, Hindenburg is now taking out 2 SPAC EV companies now. That,
I mean, to be fair, it's not just Hindenburg, but yeah, when Hindenburg starts to go after, like, they know what they're doing. Like, it's
right.
not like they know like something ain't right. It's just not worth that. Like, let's look closer. And again, this one, it's not the same as Nikola, though.
Right.
That's what I want to say. Like, Edinburgh, what they showed with Nikola was a lot closer to what I would call fraud, probably, in my opinion. But in this case, it's a little bit different, and I think their intention was good. Of course, they want to make money too. Like this SPAC deal is all about making money, but like this is the America. Its main value is money. But in this case here, it just didn't work, and it's not worth $4 billion. Or, I mean, I'm sure it's not worth $4 billion right now. Like, with everything that happened this week, I didn't check the stock, but Lordstown stock, what are they saying right now? $10 market cap, 1.8. So yeah, it collapsed in half over the last week or two. Not
yeah, it's amazing that it's still worth $1 billion, just like Nikola. Just,
I mean, yeah,
makes no sense to me.
When you look at Nikola, how much she'd work, or I mean, now it's that's the thing, though, because that's the thing. It's giving a bad name to the SPAC deals in the EV in the EV space with Nikola, and Nikola is still worth $6.5 billion for them.
Jeez,
like it's pretty crazy. And then Fisker, like the next one I'm scared for is Fisker, because Fisker is also like it's pretty crazy. It's $1 billion, $5.2 billion.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, if you have those shares now, maybe now is a good time to sell.
Well, we do not do any recommendation, and
we do not recommend anything.
We do not do any recommendation, anything like that.
If it were me, though, I would take.
Well, I see a trend too. Like, I see like what happened with Nikola and what happened with Lordstown. I mean, I'm sure if you put some detailed scrutiny on Fisker, you would start to poke hole in it. I mean, again, I think Henrik Fisker is a great car designer and everything, but he hasn't a great track record of bringing good electric vehicles to market at all. So he is working now with Magna and all those Foxconn and everything, which of course have a much better track record in terms of engineering and production. But then where's the value?
Right.
Like,
I guess you throw a good design on a tried and true Magna vehicle.
Yeah, but you think that the Fisker design firm is worth $5 billion?
That's probably not.
That's the question then. All right, let's jump into the questions.
All right. Pre-runner wannabe says the Plaid S with the yoke and blinker buttons are just a pile of contradictions in my eyes. The yoke is apparently for a better view of the dash, but if you bring up how it makes the driving experience worse, then the excuse is that it'll have FSD soon. But why bother making a sweet, crazy fast car if the excuse for the poor driver UI is that you're not supposed to drive it? That's kind of what we said.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point with the FSD too, because then like Elon says, oh, we're still working on the drive-by-wire. Of course, drive-by-wire has also some implication for self-driving, so it's good for that too. But the big thing that we were talking about was a progressing steering curve, and then if you do have full self-driving, then the progressing steering curve doesn't matter as much. But yeah, I mean, I don't know about all the contradiction in it though, because I mean, at high speed it's perfectly fine. It's at low speeds it's a problem. So if you have a dynamic, like a non-linear, intelligent steering curve that at lower speed adapts, so you don't have to do like several turn of the wheel to get it, like it would work fine. It's just apparently they cannot do it.
All right, we're getting more on the yoke. Yoke is more similar to an F1 vehicle than a regular steering wheel is.
It is in shape, but not in function at all. Like a lot of people are saying that, like especially with the controversy over Randy Pops, the driver from Unplugged, like having the wheel removed to drive it. And people are saying, well, but the F1 wheels are like the butterfly wheels, the yoke wheel. But I'm correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm not the biggest fan of F1, but I think there's doesn't turn more than 90 degree the F1 wheel. Like it's just
right.
This is the turning ratio of it. So it's not the same at all.
I think those are steer by wire too, right?
Yeah. If they don't, like they have a very complex mechanical linkage system to do that.
All right. Miles Davis from Facebook says, just a comment, New Zealand finally got a government rebate for EVs. Rebates range from $8,000 for new imported EVs. Does New Zealand make their own EVs? Anyway, imported EVs down to just over $2,000 for used plug-in hybrid imports.
That's good.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I mean, I don't know what's the New Zealand currency. Is it?
I think it's similar to the Australian currency, which is similar to the Canadian currency, which is what it is.
A lot of I need to do a lot of math now for
right.
Now.
All right. All I know is that after 3 laps at Laguna Seca, Randy Pops had the Unplugged Performance team switch out the yoke with a standard wheel. Do we want to get into that?
I mean, I can discuss a little bit closer because I did talk to Ben Schaefer about this, the head of Unplug, and what he made clear is that the reason for changing the wheel is that he was always going to race with a round wheel, like that was always the goal, because they were just testing the car for the first time before Pikes Peak. I think the car is in Pikes Peak right now, is it being shipped there for that's going to be the big debut for the car. So he basically just tested it out for the first 3 laps and then changed it to the round wheel, which is going to be the one that he's going to use to compete at Pikes Peak. So that's it. It wasn't like that much of a comment on the wheel itself. That said, if you would ask Randy which wheel he would prefer to race in, I'm pretty sure he's going to say the round wheel. So like, what are we really debating about? I don't want to put word in his mouth though.
All right, Coach DA says Tesla has reduced their product offerings for the sake of simplicity. This made sense with their limited production capacity. Do you think adding Berlin and Austin will result in more trim options? Well, it sounds like there's going to be a paint shop update. So trim as in colors, maybe, perhaps?
Yeah. I don't know it depends what you mean by trim, because normally when you mean by trim, you mean really like the version, like the long range versus the Plaid, right. The standard range versus the standard range plus versus the long range dual motor, all that stuff. But in terms of option, I mean, yes, for sure, Tesla has trimmed down the option over the years, and it would be nice to see them had a little bit more option, especially for the higher end cars, because I mean, people they chirp Porsche a lot on the fact that the options add up pretty quick, and it costs a lot of money. But at least you do have the options to customize your car and everything, and it's a selling point for many of Porsche and other automakers. So
yeah, having a unique car.
Yeah.
Tesla used to offer a lot more colors. They had like brown and green.
I think for the Model 3, Model Y, colors would be the priority for sure.
Yeah.
And then a higher end, then let's go crazy a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's a good point that coach is it? had. Maybe that once they have more production location, they could they could start opening up a little bit on that front.
Yeah. All right, Spikes 43. I appreciate Tesla's willingness to push the envelope with the Yoke, but with 1% adoption of EVs, they are really limiting the appeal of these vehicles. Regen still freaks out new buyers, and now this. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
Well, I mean, it's not a
that
Model 3 Model Y. Like
right.
the
That
Model
said,
S at this point, its impact on EV adoption is more through the fact that it's pushing the performance higher.
yeah, it's more like a
And
halo.
yeah, it's a halo effect. While the Model 3 Model Y are the one that brings the number in terms of EV adoption. Yes, if they were to release that yoke steering wheel on Model 3 Model Y, then I'll be questioning Elon's mindset. But with the Model S, I see them more like we like this thing and we are bidding on the full self driving thing, so let's just do it. But again, I'm not saying it's a good move. I said it a million times, but I'm shocked that they did it without a progressive steering curve.
All right, Shane O'Sullivan says, I wonder, is the Plaid battery capacity dependent on the supplier? Is Panasonic, LG Chem, or Cattle? I think it's probably Panasonic from the Gigafactory.
I mean, I
It's
remember
60.
Tesla always had an exclusive deal with Panasonic for Model S and S, and those were the cell produced in Japan, coming to the US.
Okay.
I don't know if that deal expired or not. So, like, I know that deal is a few years old at least. Well, it was like a decade old, really, and then it was updated several times. But yeah.
All right. Peter Moraine says, is there any public information about the Ford's F-150 Lightning production targets yet? And if not, do either of you have any rough estimates, predictions for 22 and 23 production? Wild speculation is fine. I think they're going to sell as many as they make, but
Yeah.
I'm a little bit worried they're not going to make that many.
I mean, there was this number that was thrown around of 80,000, but it was never clear where it was coming from. Though this week, Jim Farley, the Ford CEO, did say that they are right now looking at increasing the production capacity for those cars, without mentioning what the production capacity is. So
yeah, what it was or what it's going to be.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, long term, well, you did say 2022, 2023, so that's not really long term. So yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if they can produce more than 100,000 by 2023. Be pleasantly surprised. But at the same time, I'd be also pleasantly surprised if Tesla can produce more than 100,000 Cybertruck by 2023. So let's keep that in mind.
Yeah. Shane O'Sullivan, Tesla Bjorn tested Model 3s with both Panasonic and LG Chem batteries. Capacities were slightly different, but so was charge curve, etc. Very interesting. Possibly the same with Plaid. You know, I saw something where he was testing not the long range, but the standard range.
From China, right?
From China versus the one. And it was interesting because the one from China, it had a different charging curve and stuff, but it was also something like 120 kilograms heavier, which is like, the weight of a large human. And like, that's kind of a big deal, like to have that much extra weight going around. It's not like quite equal, but still.
Yeah.
I wonder if they calculate that in the range as well. Elon said the carbon sleeve prevents the motor from pulling itself apart. That's crazy. Yeah, I agree. After Dr. Kranz, former CEO of Canoo, joined Apple, do you think that we will see an Apple car eventually? I
mean, Apple has been known to scratch some project before, even though they were pretty like deep in it. But this one seems like a pretty big one to write off, right?
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, they're going to do something. I hope. Like that with Apple in the game, it's going to be a more interesting place, and that'll bring a lot of more people on. So I hope they get in.
Yeah.
Green Gold, SK Innovation said they are going to be building another 2 battery factories in Georgia for Ford and VW. Man, the South is just going to be battery factories and electric vehicle factories pretty soon.
Good for them.
Yeah. Toyota was unique in F1 for having a V10 combustion engine in F1 that breached the 20K RPM barrier. Being able to increase the RPM allows smaller motors for the same kilowatt output. That's a great point. That's a lot of RPM. Probably easier with the without having copper in there. All right. Thank you very much from Asimo 3089. $100. That's going to buy a lot of beer in Germany for us. All right. Jonathan DeVito
We're
does
not
the.
we're not we're not going through his comment.
Well, it was just kind of a thank you. Never realized I could
Okay,
support you.
okay. I didn't see
But
it.
and he has more comments later, and I
Okay,
thank
okay, okay.
him.
We'll go through them.
Uh, yeah, so we'll talk soon. All right. Jonathan DeVito, does the carbon wrap motor show up on the Cybertruck with a step down gearbox to allow for super high towing capacity at lower speeds? I don't think so, but what do you think?
I mean, I think that's gonna be the new standard motor for a while. I think.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised to see it happen in another vehicle program. Yeah.
All right. Luke Miller, Elon talked about the induction motor, but what about the permanent magnet motor? Uh, don't really know the
Yeah.
context
Yeah.
there. Green Gold, what do you think of Lordstown Motors CEO resignation? We kind of talked about that.
Yeah.
What is going on at GM to partner with shady companies? Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my point in the article because it was like GM is actually linked to those company like Lordstown and Nikola. I
Yeah.
mean, less so Nikola now, but Lordstown, I think GM is still like a fairly large shareholder, right?
Yeah. Their M&A guy or
Mm.
woman needs to be probably reset or
Yeah, well, that's
fired.
the whole thing, the whole due diligence thing on Nikola. Like
Yeah.
whoever was in charge of that, like
Yeah.
some job review coming up that won't be fun.
Kirk Hammond says the new Plaid has a new interior lighting, correct? Like light strips that change color. I think I saw something about that.
I didn't see that.
Maybe I'm thinking of ID.4 or something. Asimo 3089, our tipster. It is so fun when magazines like Motor Trend finally get their hands on these amazing cars. I wonder when Doug will have a review out. I believe he's referring to Doug DeMuro. I enjoy his
Should have
reviews
one
as well.
pretty soon. Actually, if I was in California, I could have beaten Motor Trend to the punch probably, but I'm stuck in Canada. Not for
Soon,
long.
soon,
Not
soon.
for long.
I have a theory. Not only will top speed be upped with the track package, but we'll see an improved 0 to 60 time. Well,
Yeah, it's not impossible.
and a wing retrofit. Maybe we're getting a little further off now.
Well, no, actually, he's kind of right because the parts catalog it was referenced to the back hatch with and without a wing.
Oh, interesting.
So, but I mean, the wing that we saw was on the prototypes was what do you call it? Retractable wing.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if you can like it's not that easy to do a retrofit with that, but
Yeah, and we saw a huge wing on the unplugged performance one as well. I don't think
yeah.
that's going to be. Did you notice Motor Trend has a more
Oh,
extreme cheetah mode? Near the back of their 120 image list is a photo of a car squatting down.
we
Oh
did
yeah,
talk about it during the show.
yeah. I wonder how many quarter-mile runs it took to get 925. Huh.
Well, the whole point is that it's pretty repeatable.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and we did learn it takes 10 seconds to activate cheetah, and there's like you have to hit the brake and then the gas all the way down, or the accelerator. He's Team Yoke.
Hey, I'm not against the yoke. Like, let's be honest. Like I said, I love the way it looks. It is a concern at lower speed, but like I'm not buying a car right now. But if I was buying a Model S Plaid right now, and I had the option between a yoke and a round steering wheel, I might go with the yoke, even though I despise the idea of not having a progressive steering curve at lower speed. I'm that shallow. I want the cool look over the practicality.
Yeah, you got the 20-inch wheels.
Man, if you get the Plaid, you gotta get the 21-inch wheel.
Right. Surprised to see Motor Trend said Tesla does not currently plan to offer a round wheel.
I mean, there was no indication of that from Elon. He was really clear that he loves the yoke.
Do we have any more info on the carbon wrap motors?
That was the first thing one of the first thing we discussed on the show. That was a little bit of information we had. That's it.
One other thing I think we discussed though before is that they're very light. Like small. People at the show were picking them up. They're like 30, 35 pounds. A Plaid owner maintained 100 kilowatt charging up to 75 to 80%.
Yeah, we discussed that last week. There's a significant improvement in the charging curve for sure. Even 200 kilowatts at over like 30-40%, closer to 50. It's very good.
This is probably something people are thinking about. Is Cybertruck production dependent on 4680 battery development, or is there a plan B to use an alternative battery while 4680 is still being worked on?
Look, I mean, the structural battery pack is linked to the 4680. Like they need the bigger cells to do the structural part of the pack. And I mean, it is undoubtedly a better design in terms of the performance of the vehicle and the efficiency. There's the questions of if there's a cell that breaks and how do you replace it and everything, or if there's an accident, the battery pack could be affected more than if the pack was floating in it. Well, floating is probably an exaggeration, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're making a new vehicle from scratch right now, which Tesla has been doing with the Cybertruck, and they had that structural battery pack design when they were designing the Cybertruck, I'd be surprised that it doesn't use it. So yeah, it would have to have the 4680 cells too.
All right,
and that's why also I talked about earlier that I would be surprised if Tesla can make more than 100,000 Cybertrucks by 2023.
All right, we're getting pretty far out, 20 minutes past an hour, so we're going to kind of
work again.
Shannon Sullivan, aircon, it also works really well with solar PV, as you generally have more surplus energy in the summer when it's warmest, and actually during the day when the sun's out. So that makes a lot of sense. You don't have to store it in batteries or send it back. I'm in the home heat pump. If it can be adapted to my existing systems, I still want to use that as a backup when it gets really cold. Yeah, that's kind of my current scenario. I have a heat pump until it gets really cold, then we're back on oil. If Tesla could make a DC-powered HVAC to run off direct solar and battery DC, then that would be a game changer. Yeah, that's something we talk about here a lot, is having a DC backbone at 400 volts. Also, it was interesting that the Plaid Model S runs at 450 volts versus previous ones that were 400. And yeah, talking about California being dry, my AC unit puts out about a quart of water a day, and it's not clean. Yeah. The very cold temperature at the radiator condenses moisture in the air, which can be collected. All right, let's see if there's any obvious things here.
People talking about seeing the Mackie.
Oh, here we go. Here's a good last one. We need Fred to demo some electric rollerblades.
I've seen those. What are those? The one from the Ninebot.
Oh, like Heelys, you mean, or no?
No, the one that you like step on. Basically, it's like they aren't technically roller skates, I guess, but they are self-balancing one that you step on it, and they're independent of each other. They're sort of like a skateboard, but two different set.
Right, like a hoverboard balancing or whatever.
Those are the only roller. I mean, you cannot even call it rollerblades because it's one each wheel. It's like a rollerblade. It's like long, like blade-like wheels. But I don't know. I just bought brand new Missions rollerblades, and I'm happy with them. I'm gonna stick to that. But yes, I thanks a lot everyone watching the show, and then I mean that's a good segue to talk again about IAA coming in second week of September in Munich. If you want to check us out there, we're going to be there. We're going to talk about it a little more throughout the next few months leading up to the show. But thanks again for watching, everyone. Thanks again for listening. If you're listening on your podcast app, I hope you have a great weekend. And we're going to see you the same place, same